Alright, Bruce. Much like you have to come to the aid of defending your old school, I am just as responsible for defending my generation. So I'm making this video to point out some of the to bring about some of the things that you pointed out in your last video when it comes to comparing Floyd to Bernard Hopkins or Manny Pacquiao to Bernard Hopkins. Now, first, let me just start off by saying that I personally do think that Bernard Hopkins is better than Manny Pacquiao, but I feel like you have biased these stats to make your point. Now, you say in the beginning of this video there are belt holders with titles and there are world champions. For the sake of this presentation, I'm including champions only. So the people who are holding these titles within your presentation are going to be champions according to your interpretation. But I understand why you did that, because I know that Manny Pacquiao has some titles, some title fights from title holders who aren't really legit. I would consider legit champions. I understand that. I was like, okay, well that's fair, because Manny has these international belts. Those really shouldn't count. But then when I go back and look at Bernard Hopkins' title fights, from what I see that you included his title fights from the USBA belt. That should not count. If you're not going to count Manny's international belts, then you don't get to count the USBA belt. I've never heard of the USBA belt. And I see why you did that, because when you do count all of Manny's belts, Manny has about 30. Okay? So if we're gonna talk about just major titles, then you don't get to include the USBA belt. If we're including all titles, then Manny has 30 and Bernard has 33. And I can understand why you wouldn't want to do that, because obviously I don't think Manny does have the career that Bernard Hopkins has. But for you to interpret who's a champion and who's not, just to stress the point, you fudge the statistics, bro. I mean, come on. And then you go on to say Hopkins cleaned out the middleweight division. No, he did not. No, he did not. I mean, maybe we have different interpretations of what cleaning out a division is. Put it this way. In 1988, Bernard Hopkins started his career. October 11th. And, he lost his first fight at light heavyweight, but he decided to move down to middleweight. So, right away, him unable to compete in a higher weight class doesn't help his audition towards being, a pound for pound great. But I'll let it slide. That's just one fight. So, he restarts his career at middleweight, and there's another fighter 15 days later who starts his career at middleweight as well. And that fighter is James Toney. Never fought. They never fought. So for you to say he cleaned out division, he never fought James Toney, and that's significant to me, because James Toney is one of the greatest middleweights of our era. Maybe not, in the 2000s, but okay, maybe the generation a little bit prior to mine. He never fought James Toney, and James Toney started his career later that month at middleweight, and was able to become the IBF middleweight champion before Bernard did, and vacated it before he moved up to super middleweight. Now, when he vacated it, Bernard did fight he fought almost everybody, but then in an attempt to get that IBF middleweight championship, he fought another great middleweight of his time, Roy Jones, for the vacant middleweight title. Lost it. Again, that's not cleaning out a division. You don't not fight James Toney, who's one of the greatest middleweights of our generation, and you don't lose to Roy Jones, who's one of the greatest middleweights of all time, and then say, oh, well, then after that, he ended up getting the title, and then he cleaned that. That's not cleaning out a division. At least not in my book. If he would have cleaned out division, and you say he beat every top contender, he would have beat James Toney, okay? He would have beaten Roy Jones, and then he would have defended his title. He lost against the two best middleweights in his division, and then beat the rest. That's not a clean out. Later on, now he did, when he won that title, he did reign for a long time. He had a great middleweight reign. But again, I still don't think that there is, I think Felix Sturm was a top contender that he did not fight. And personally, I feel like Felix beat Oscar De La Hoya in his match with De La Hoya before De La Hoya went on to fight Hopkins. I thought, you know, since that fight was all top rank, Bob Arum, there was no way Felix had a chance of winning that fight. Go back and watch that fight, and you tell me who won. I personally feel like Bernard should have fought Felix. I thought it would have been a way better fight because I don't think the way they match up stylistically, it would have been a good fight. It would have been a hard fight for Bernard too. But whatever. I remember going back as a fan, I was like, damn, Felix got robbed. But I'm glad that, you know, he got robbed because I want to see Oscar and Bernard Hopkins fight. So that's another top contender middleweight that Bernard did not fight. And then you fast forward to Jermaine Taylor. Who loses to Jermaine Taylor? Twice. Now, I will admit that I personally feel like Hopkins was robbed in the first fight. But nonetheless, you don't say that he cleaned out the division and he lost to Jermaine Taylor. Twice. So, you know, this whole thing about Hopkins cleaning out the division and Floyd didn't. Okay. Floyd had fought 17 fights before he fought General Hernandez. Beat him easily. Beat Angel Manfredi and beat the former king of that division, Diego Corrales. Even Diego had moved up, but he was very much willing to come back down. Hopkins at least could have done that with James Toney. James Toney was clearly the best at middleweight before he vacated that belt and moved up to super middleweight. Why didn't he ever try to organize a fight with James Toney? And I don't know what you're talking about. Who else was there at super featherweight for Floyd to fight that he didn't beat? He cleaned out that division, in my opinion. Cleaned it out. Now I just want to read this insert from one of your earlier videos from this year, from your entitled "Floyd Will Beat Manny," the one that you came out with after he beat Sugar Shane Mosley. You go about 9 minutes and 30 seconds into the video, and you say this: when Floyd went and tried to go fight Mosley in '99, Shane's excuse was, "Well, Floyd's not a big enough money draw yet." Shane ducked Floyd 3 times, ducked him over a loose tooth, and now you see why. Because he knew Floyd Mayweather was better. This isn't a special case. Floyd has been calling out the best since he came into the game. Since he's always thought he was the best, and he's always thought he was the best. This isn't anything new. And, you know, the truth is his motivation is money, because he knows that better fighters are going to be able to generate more money. He's consistently called out De La Hoya in their prime, Shane in their prime, as you pointed out in your video. He called out Costa, he called out Prince, he called out Hatton. All of them truly had the same reasoning for not fighting him. He is an up-and-coming fighter who is extremely talented, who doesn't have a big following. It's a big risk for me to lose, and he has everything to gain because he's gonna be getting more money. He's gonna be replacing people as the cash cow. Eventually, it happened. Eventually, De La Hoya determined, okay, like, well, he can create the biggest fight in history, so now I'll give him the title shot that he's been wanting his whole career. There is no managed career. Floyd doesn't have a managed career. He's been trying to get fights with the best since the very beginning. And you of all people should know that. You should know that. You know, and when it comes to Hopkins, before I liked Mayweather, I liked Hopkins. And he's had a great career. But even he himself does the same thing. Do you find it odd that Hopkins he organized this Pascal fight so quickly? Why? Because Pascal has a big following, and he matches it better for him stylistically. There's a reason why he didn't fight Dawson. Not a big enough draw, wouldn't make the money, and a younger technician would not match up with him stylistically at this point in his career. Joe Clem 15, out.